Hello, this is Boomerhands with another video. Today we're going to be talking about the major archetypes of PSS. One of the most important things for creating a strong ship is using rooms that match a core strategy. For example, having a ship with a mixture of missiles and laser rooms won't bode too well since you will be competing against an opponent ship on two different defensive fronts. By having both weapon types, you will be doing less damage to their shield due to the dedicating of power/valuable ship space to the missile rooms, rather than applying more rooms to keep the shield damage pressure going if they have engines. Now, early games, holes 1 through 6, due to the excess of power you have at these stages, you can put all the offensive rooms on your ship and it not be incorrect. Savvy does a good job keeping the early game playthrough as much of a sample platter of here's the different offensive rooms. You have enough power to try them all, but after this point, you want to start solidifying into an archetype of what you like most from hole 7 and up. Once you hit the hole 10, it becomes really difficult to slip into an archetype quickly if you haven't made any core decisions due to the amount of time upgrading rooms become at this level. The first archetype we're going to be taking a look at is Gunships. Gunships are the most straightforward build in the game. The most common rooms on a gunship are the mineral mining laser, plasma dischargers, bolters, hangars, ion cannons, drone hangars, railguns, photon disruptors, laser blasters, and photon phasers. Its primary goal is to break the shields as fast as possible and start dumping damage into a few choice rooms selected by the captain. Its time to kill tends to be very fast compared to the other core strategies, its primary weakness being very strong shield crew and cloak. Next on the list will be carriers, the close cousin to the gunship, but these ones lean a bit more on allowing their crafts to do the work. They tend to feature roughly the same weapons as a gunship, but tend to err on the side of defensiveness. Primary rooms consist of the hangar, drone hangar, launch pad, sometimes decoy drone bays, cloak generator, anti-aircraft rooms, and engines. It has a pretty slow time to kill, due to relying on crafts more to pressure the enemy ship while under cloak. Its biggest weaknesses is manned anti-aircraft rooms and a very resilient repair crew. Number 3. We have missile boats that are using penetrator missile ammo. This is a very unique build that runs a hull damage only missiles, completely bypassing the need to damage shields or rooms. The hull markers that make a missile boat are both missile rooms and the auxiliary missile launcher. Due to the ship only needing 7 power to deal damage to the enemy ship, all the rooms afterwards become defensive or purely supportive. The supporting rooms tend to have ways to lock down engine rooms to increase the probability of the penetrator missiles landing, such as Corsairs from hangars, the PD plus EMP, and Teleporter to load system hack boarders or Galactic Alchemist to knock out engines. Due to the low power cost of the damaging rooms, it enjoys the luxury of having many defensive rooms, making this a slower build for the time to kill. As previously stated, the penetrator missile's biggest weakness is engines, but additional cloak, since it functions as a 100% evasion engine due to the slow flight speed of the missiles. Lastly, we have Telespam, one of the most hated builds in PSS. Telespam takes advantage of using the teleporter and mass teleporter to disable enemy ships from the inside, often sported with rushers, high HP, high attack crew that tend to overwhelm defending crew to the point where the enemy ship does not function. Common boarders are ones that use gas, crit strike, and phase shift as the most frequent boarder abilities. Due to its strat only needing 3 power to function, it has a variety of ways to build it, but most Telespam players opt for a more defensive ship using very minimal offensive weapons and use missiles and or crafts as their offensive weapons of choice. The weaknesses of this build are EMP, defender droids, and mines. Now, a good chunk of these ships don't always fit comfortably within these categories. For example, the Galactic Alchemist gunship hybrid, where it's a gunship first, but uses the teleporter to send over powerful boarders to leave long enough lasting holes in the enemy ship, followed by enough burst damage from a standard gunship arsenal to get the job done very quickly. Getting this level of speed in a kill is not something beginner to intermediate players can realistically accomplish, but it's definitely something to build towards in the long run. As a bonus, I'm going to show you some sample holes. I know not every single one of these holes are going to be exactly what suits your preference, and you can nitpick, well, a piece of armor here isn't correct, or your room placement is awful. These are just concept designs. The rooms are there that make a core strategy cohesive. One side note, is that all these rooms do have Viseri mech bays. It's the best premium room in the game, and whenever it comes around on the daily store or late store, you need to get this room as soon as possible. This is a Hull 7 gunship. The core rooms are all there and deal shield damage. The only exception to this is the rocket artillery launcher, which is one of those rare, few exception rooms that you can run off-brand and still be successful. Having a RAL on a gunship as well introduces a core concept of baiting AI lines to remove power to enemy rooms that may or may not be effective against your strat. Researches you would want to focus on at this point in time is choosing between Stingers and Intercept craft. Later on down the line, you would want to invest into the Ion Core researches. You may also notice that this particular build got hit by quality control and is missing elevators. I made this at 4 AM. Let's just pretend that the elevators are there in between the gaps. Following the gunship, we have a Hull 8 pen spam ship. As you can see, the ship has an auxiliary missile launcher which shows up on the daily/late store and can also be purchased with doves in the dove store. The researches you should focus on are penetrator missiles and corsairs. Corsairs are a utility craft that allow you to EMP or shut down a room for a set amount of time. Since penetrator missiles' main enemy is the engines, running corsairs will significantly increase your hit overall. One thing to note about penetrator missiles, in their damage calculations it does take into account the armor of the enemy room that it's targeting, so do yourself a favor. If you want to do the most with this build, you have to manually target their lowest armored room if it isn't already targeting it. Hull 9, we have the Telespam ship. As you can see, it's a pretty defensive ship, only needing 2 sources of damage in the hangar and RAL. A good Telespam ship will only need this much firepower to get the job done. One of the key factors of a Telespam ship are long corridors that essentially put your crew into a conga line without having to use elevators that delay their time to get to the teleporter. Your boarders' jobs are to do all the heavy lifting by knocking out the reactor power to take their defenses offline. This will allow your weapons to send volleys of damage unimpeded. The most noteworthy researches for a Telespammer are going to be the border droids to add additional crew to the enemy ship that it has to deal with. Fitness research is also important to buff your boarding crew, and catapult research as a craft of choice due to them not having to break shields to eventually start doing damage. The final build we have to cover is seen in this Hull 10 carrier. Sporting all 3 hangars and a cloak, this ship becomes an absolute menace at this stage. The shield is parked right next to the cloak generator to have your shield crew charge the cloak while it's not cloaked, and then switch seamlessly to the shield while cloaked. Drone hangar is where carrier builds really start to take its strides with the new research introductions of bulwark, shield busters, bombshells, and prisms. At this whole level of carrier, shield busters are your general go-to to keep the enemy shields low. Prisms do scale a bit better later on when you have access to super weapons, since they don't have to soften up multiple rooms with their AoE damage spread. So for now, we're going to keep focusing on bulwarks and shield busters. If you want to run lots of pilots on your ship, the best option is to use bombshells as your drone hangar's craft of choice. It's the only craft in the game that scales its firing rate directly related to your pilot's boot stat. The drawback is it will not be doing any shield damage and will somewhat function like a missile, but instead of using engine evasion to dodge incoming damage, the enemy has to use AA to dodge the incoming bombshells. For all my Dynasty members, I will be doing more sample layouts for all the intermediate faction hulls. And if you're new to the game and want to join a fleet, or if you want to grow under the Dynasty banner, come find me at discord.gg/thedynasty-PSS. That is it for the guide. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you'd like to see more PSS educational content, like and sub. Have a good one.